called to order. All right, Madam Secretary, will you please do the roll call?
Chairperson Kiever,
Here.
Vice Chair Meyer, Commissioner Case, Commissioner Whitefield, Commissioner Schutte,
Here.
Commissioner Caldwell, Commissioner Walt. A quorum is present.
Thank you. All right. At this time, I will open the floor to public comments. Does anybody in the public have any comments they'd like to discuss or inform us about that falls within the purview of the Parks and Recreation Commission?
Denny French, Carson City, Nevada. Chair and chairs and mayor and all. I don't usually come in as emotionally shaken as I am today because I have to say things that I'm uncomfortable saying because I'm deeply hurt by the fact that I have this feeling and I don't think I'm alone.
What happened? Why don't you tell us?
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you very much. I've handed out pictures of what I've taken through the loop area and what's going to be happening there as far as the slurry sill and the lines. And I think that's a disappointment to me. But the biggest disappointment is I feel like this commission is no longer guiding itself through independent thinking or taking positions or stands and holding on to them instead of passing them off, in one case, to the directors of parks, which is Lindsay Boyle, and others. And I think that's a shame. I think regardless of your feelings, if they're related to mine or not, I want you all to feel safe to say and relate what you feel. And I do not feel you're leading with a commission's positions. And I think the last meeting that was held was very firm that you were against the road through, as a majority of you were against the road through Fuji Park. Mills Park, excuse me. And you had positions on that and you had concerns. You didn't want to put it forward without those concerns being put forward to the Board of Supervisors. I don't feel that that was done. If it was, then I'm really sort of hurt by the way that the board related. Everything is not fine and dandy. Everything is not copacetic. And I don't think you were comfortable enough to stand up to that. And as I had to miss that meeting because of a health issue, I wasn't able to relate in person, and that was a shame because I like to say things straight up. I'd like to say it to people that I'm having the issues with or have the regard for because of respect. I don't feel that you're being treated with respect. I don't feel your information that you're passing on, your concerns and considerations are getting out there. And I think as your representatives of a cross path of the community, that's really dangerous to us. We don't have other people. And I've been directed not to direct my concerns to you, but to the directors of the departments. And I think that is sort of like having the cart lead the horse. I want to be able to talk to you. I come to these meetings not because I love to speak. I have communal anxiety issues. I have other things that I could be doing, but I love this place. And I hate to see disregard for the nature of it, whether it's in a park or an open space. We seem to want to asphalt, put traffic in places that it shouldn't be, and we seem to disregard anything that's living other than us. For our convenience, we put roads. We not only put roads, but we put them in areas that were meant to be quiet, sort of sanctuaries to our open areas, even if they're parks. And I'm really very saddened because I don't think you should be treated like that. I think your concerns should have been sent on, and I'm all for changes at Mills Park that are helpful to the community. I see nothing helpful about adding more asphalt, which we already have trouble paying for in the neighborhoods. Talk about inclusivity and transportation and such. As an individual, I'm trying to get sidewalks set so I can walk to places. I'm trying to get asphalt fixed so that I'm not driving in potholes. And you're wanting to expand more asphalt without having the funds to tend what you have. And I'm sorely upset about that. I would say I'd be angry, but I'm not quite there because of my regard for the opportunity to speak today means a lot to me, and I appreciate it very much. But for all the people you want to be able to have walk on your paths or ride conveniently on, there are places for them to ride without bumps, ride without ruts on Earth. We don't have to put paved everywhere. The pictures that I put out, last minute thing, wasn't expecting I'd be walking right now or even being up. So I'm very pleased to be here. I hope that you'll look at these and see what you're projecting to the community. You're projecting a city of heat built on asphalt and cement. There's no plans to put more trees in at this area that I have the pictures from on Longview. Nothing that I know of, but we have money for it. We have money for the asphalt. I'm really, really very hurt that when I'm looking for information, I'm turned away and suggested that I am micromanaging instead of making a suggestion that I think is valid. I may be outnumbered by a whole city, and that may be the point. But I'm hoping anybody watching will understand that there's still an opportunity to speak through you. But you have to be listened to speak directly to the mayor and to the other councils, that you don't want this place all asphalted. I know how to get on a trail. I know that there are ways that people get by. I know that every trail's not accessible to everybody. I've just been up to the summit. It's not going to be accessible to everybody until you put a road up there. And maybe that's the way it needs to stay, not accessible or non-accessible, but not to those that are casual about it. It's just we're going to talk while we're on this walk type convenience. It's got to be for a real reason, and I think it's overkill what we're doing, and I think it's a shame. Thank you very much. I noticed that the timer wasn't on. I won't carry on, but thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing your concerns with us. We really appreciate that. Okay. Does anybody on the commission have anything to say? Comments? Okay. Thank you, Mr. French. Are there any other public comments? All right. We're going to move on to item number 4 for possible action, approval of minutes from our joint meeting that we held with the Open Space Advisory Committee on June 20th, 2023.
Move to approve?
Okay, is there a second? Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
The motion carries. All right, we're moving on to item 5. 5A is discussion only. Presentation regarding the program of the month, which is Movies in the Park / Food Truck Fridays at Mills Park, presented by the Carson City Cinema Club. Dan? Is Dan going to do the presentation? Or? All right, come on up. Well, dang. For the record, please introduce yourself.
You bet. For the record, my name's Garrett Lapierre. I have a couple titles, but tonight I don't have any title talking to you guys. I'm just a regular citizen that is helping put together a event here in town, and we did it. We've done movies in the park for, we couldn't quite remember whether it was 5 years. We think this last year was the 6th year. And this last year we tied in food trucks before the movies and then played the movie in the park. So I sponsor the movie part of it, so it's all free. There's no charge to the community for anything to come out. The only thing that is a charge is for someone to come pay for food at a food truck if they so wish. So this last year was a hit. We had great numbers. We don't have anyone that's actually tallying and taking attendance, but rough estimates, we have 1,200 to 1,500 coming to eat each Friday.
Wow.
And then we have 600 to 400 each movie night. The first movie night was The Sandlot, which is a wonderful movie. So that always brings a few more people out. And so we figured about 600 for that first movie and then about 400 for each movie thereafter, which has been a wonderful turnout. Billy from Busboy will be here shortly as well, and I won't steal his thunder on the food truck side of things. But what we have planned for next year is to do 2 months. So a month of movies and a month of music. So the first month will be movie month, and second month will be music month. Movies start June 21st, and that will run for 4 weeks. And then for the next 4 weeks until August 9th, we'll run music. And music will be a concert. We'll have a band out having a concert. Come eat at the food trucks and listen to music. Bring your chairs, sit on the grassy lawn, just like you do for the movies. Okay. I'll also be getting a bigger screen for the movies this year as well. And a couple people that couldn't be here that definitely deserve some recognition, that we never would even made it to this point to have the idea to tie in food trucks. And that's Rhonda Bend and Jeff Fast, who are representatives of the Classic Cinema Club. And they're a nonprofit, and they do a bunch of other movies here in town as well. They do a 12-month series, but they have a movie license. So that's where I pay Rhonda for the movie license, and then we play the movie outside. That's how we get the license to do that. So they've been wonderful in putting this together. It's a lot of sweat and hard work from us three making this thing come together. And to see that many people show up this year was absolutely wonderful. So I won't spoil the movie ticket for next year, but we do have the movies picked out. We have some good ones. Other than that, that's about it. I'm open to questions. I want to be clear. No one's making money. No one's making money at all. I'm paying for the movies, and then the shortage that we have is getting paid from the nonprofit, the Classic Cinema Club. So the only one making money is the food truck selling their food, as they should for selling their food. So open to any questions you guys may have.
Any of the commissioners? Commissioner Schutte?
Well, not a question, but I really think it's wonderful. It's, anything that celebrates community, anything that brings people together, that opportunity for people to enjoy, a movie and great food or music and community and friendships and talking and our beautiful outdoors is wonderful. And being involved with a nonprofit, I appreciate the work involved. And, there's always so much to putting on an event and making sure that there's the licenses, there's the insurance, there's all of that. And so a huge thank you, because it's a wonderful thing you're doing.
Excuse me. Okay. Okay.
I'm Billy Lavelle with the Busboy. Hello.
Oh, Commissioner Chase has a question or a comment, I believe.
Sure.
Thank you. I'm super excited about this. I got all your emails, but my baby is too little to go at the moment because she needs to go to bed. So next year, I'm very excited for this lineup you've got. I was wondering, are there anything we can do to help, like remove barriers or get the word out? Do you need more volunteers? Like, what are your needs that are not being met? How can we help you expand?
One thing in another group I should have really given thanks to in my previous remarks was to Jennifer Budge and to Dan Earp. They've been so wonderful to work with. I mean, anything we need, from a garbage bag to a key to the bathrooms to extra toilet paper, they have it for us right on hand. So they've been absolutely wonderful. Staff has been great. We do all this with me pushing it on my Facebook, and Classic Cinema pushing it on their Facebook, and the city pushing it on their Facebook. That's it. So if we had some marketing push, that would be helpful. Whether that's a page on the city website, that would be a wonderful thing to have. And we plan to call it Family Fun Fridays moving forward, rather than Food Truck Fridays. So some marketing help would be great, in whatever form that is. We could certainly have some conversations about that. Okay. And Billy has an exciting, I didn't steal the thunder about what we're talking about food truck wise. So why don't you tell them what we have planned?
Do I have to always hold that down or just? Okay. So in order to kick it off, the history on food trucks is the old Roachcoach thing. Taco trucks is where it's all started. So we want to kick off the season Cinco de Mayo weekend with a taco competition with all the food trucks. So everybody, gringos included, are all going to compete in a taco competition to kick off the season. So, yeah, that'll be fun.
Yeah, now I have a follow-up question about tacos.
Yes.
Is this competition just the food trucks in Carson City, or are we gonna make this kind of regional? Are we inviting Douglas and Reno? Are we gonna compete with everyone?
I think we'll start this year with just the local ones.
Okay.
Because I want to work out some bugs before we go larger on it, because I don't want to fall on our face on doing something like that. So, and we have about 20 trucks locally now, so it's enough to make a good impression. I think our best night there was at the movies nights this year. We had 15 trucks. So, and everybody did great. So, and we found the marriage of doing a family event with the food trucks escalated everything for us. So,
Awesome. Well, thank you, and I look forward to Carson City, one of our Carson City truck being the champion
yes,
for at least a year.
that's right. Oh, we'll keep it going.
Questions or comments from the commission? Jennifer?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Jennifer Budge, Parks and Recreation Director. I wanted to thank you both for all your hard work, and we definitely couldn't do it without you. It's such a great event. We get so many positive comments. I did want to offer too, we do put the events in our activity guide, so we do put it out that way. And Visit Carson City always puts it on their calendar as well. So they are promoting it as well, which is great. And we can continue to work with Visit Carson City to see how else we can help promote that through the community and not just on Facebook. There's obviously a lot of other avenues to do that. So we want it to be successful as well. And thankfully, the board approved a policy that gives us the flexibility of being able to co-sponsor events with nonprofits. So with Classic Cinema Group, the city's able to be a co-sponsor, which waives the rental fees for the park, and then they can cover their costs through sponsorships and other generosity from the community to keep it free for the public.
Commissioner Walt?
As the school board representative, I would encourage that you contact the school district and have them put it on. They have several different social media outlets as well, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and it might be a way that they can get it. And if there's a way that they can get it to the students before the last day of school, I think that, because they have the parent square, that's how they communicate with the parents. So I think that would be a good outlet.
Thank you. It's a great suggestion.
Any other questions or comments? Well, great. Thank you both for all your hard work. We really
thank you.
appreciate it, and we'll see you at the movies.
All right. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to move on to item 5B.
I'm sorry, Madam Chair, did you want to ask if there's public comment for that
Oh, I
item?
am so sorry. Is there public comment on that? Mayor Bagwell, please come on down.
See, I came all the way here. Yeah. Lori Bagwell for the record, and I just wanted to make public comment really to thank all of you for your service on the commission, but really to see the partnership and to see where, as a board, we had approved the fee waivers for that, and then to see something so fantastic, utilize it. And so when you see recommendations from you, and then the board works hard, and then the community partners, I just wanted to come and give a shout out to everyone that it worked, right? When we all come together, and I love partners that recognize they're a part of the community. I heard Garrett say it's not about making money, it's about being there for your community. So just I wanted to just do a shout out publicly, because we don't get to do that very often, right? Everything's a lot of business and a lot of work, but big shout out to all of you for supporting the community as a whole. Just wanted to do that publicly.
Public comment? All right, we're going to move on. Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Danny French, come on down.
Thank you very much. Denny French, Carson City, Nevada. I have to say I went out to movie night and I had a great time, other than trying to get up after having sat on the grass. Was a real pleasure. It was awesome the times that I went out to see the families and the activities there. And I just want to say thank you to all that helped organize that. I talked to both gentlemen during one of the visits I had. But I also want to say that that's an example of a calm, quiet park as it is with no street through it. I worry that that street then would make a situation of parking and getting out of parking spaces a jeopardy, and in children and small bits of carts and strollers and such. So those are those concerns, but I had a great time at the Friday nights that I was able to get out, and I really enjoy it, and thank all that were involved. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. We appreciate them. It's on move. All right, let's move on to this item, item 5B, which is discussion only regarding acknowledging the outgoing Parks and Recreation Chairman, me. So I'm going to ask her to take over at this point.
Well, I'm going to pass the ball to Jennifer. Nice catch, Jennifer.
Thank you. I got it. Jennifer Budge, Parks and Recreation Director. So this is a little bittersweet because we aren't totally rid of Leanne. Leanne is now working for us at the cemetery at Lone Mountain Cemetery. We're so excited to have her there. So this is her last meeting as a Park and Recreation Commission member, but we still get to have her as part of our Parks and Rec family. So she's so supportive of our staff. She's always so helpful. Anytime I need any kind of help or support, she drops whatever she's doing to help us out. So we can't think of her enough, and I do have a card and a gift for her. And it's a beautiful picture by one of our park rangers, Danielle Sattler, at Carson River Park. So I hope you enjoy it. Thank you. We
gonna
have
put-
some really talented staff. Normally I hand out a Dan Arp photography, but Danielle is, she loves to photograph wildlife, and she's been taking so many photos in all of our parks, and this is just one of many. So it's at Carson River Park. It's a monarch butterfly. It's beautiful.
Bittersweet, as Jen says, served on this board for a long time and on the Shade Tree Council before that, so I think for a total of 20 years. So, but I still get to stay with the Parks family, still get to meet all the wonderful people, and I'm sure we'll be coming and making reports on the cemetery to all of you guys as we go. So it has been a wonderful experience. It has been a privilege and an honor to serve on the board with all of you. And I know we'll see each other around town. Absolutely. So, thank you. So with that, we are going to move on to item, public comment. I am so sorry. Mayor Bagwell.
I worked hard today. I want y'all to know I look at every agenda
I appreciate
for
that.
every meeting, and I try once a year to make something of each of the boards. And so tonight's agenda was like perfect because I thought I could celebrate many activities. And so I wanted to come tonight to also thank Leanne for all of her service. When I was first elected to the Board of Supervisors, not the mayor at that time, but this was my committee, which I adored immensely. And I had the privilege of working with Leanne for many of those years on this commission. And so then becoming mayor, I also had the honor with my fellow board members, but designing a coin that allows us to thank people for significant moments or activities or things that they've provided to our community. So on behalf of the entire Board of Supervisors, I wanted to give Leanne a coin to thank her for her come down.
ladies so much. So welcome. So I hope that it's a treasure for you. It is. Thank you, Dan. So much. You're most welcome. But again, thank you. We need volunteers in our community, and you're a fine example. So thank you. You did. I'm utterly surprised. Way to go. Once in a while, I hear it was great. All right, I'm gonna ask you to take over.
Okay.
Okay.
So Kurt Meyer here. I wanted to say thank you for setting the tone. When I came on the commission, you were here, and I believe you're the commissioner, and you really set a wonderful tone, and I learned a lot by observing. So how friendly you are with everybody and patient with everybody. It's been wonderful working with you. So
I think we're still gonna work together in some capacity.
there you go. Probably. I have here on my future agenda items to get a report from Lone Mountain Cemetery. So I don't know that we've ever had them come. So I thought, well, what the heck? Bring it back. All right. So with that, we're going to move to item 5C. Jennifer's going to cover this too, and it's just about some real moving around as far as you being gone and filling the position of chairman and vice chairman. So go ahead, Jen.
Oh, thank you. Jennifer Budge, Parks and Recreation Director. Well, with Leanne's absence, Kurt Meyer will be the chair now for the remainder of the year. And we just need the commission to elect a new vice chair for the remainder of the calendar year. And then we'll do elections per our bylaws at the first of 2024.
Okay, so that means that we need somebody out there on the commission to say, hey, I want to be vice chair until the end of December. Is anybody interested in that? Leah? I kind of knew that, so. Just my radar, right? Right on. So do I have a motion for that? Okay, go ahead and. Do I have a second?
Second.
Oh.
I
Lisa's second. So all those in favor? Any opposed? I don't think it'd make a difference.
I do support it.
All right. So there you are. Welcome. Why, of course you can say something.
Thank you all for having that faith in me, and I want to give another thank you to Leanne. She has been here serving as the chair, I think twice as I've been on this commission, and I counted today, I've been appointed for 6 years. Holy mackerel. I know you said you have 20 years of service, so I've only gotten you for like part of that time, but holy cow, I can't thank you enough for your leadership and your mentorship and showing me how it's done. Thank you.
I'm going to stall here and let some shuffling go on. So
Take the gavel back.
there we go.
Remember to be decisive with it.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. I learned from you.
Gavel with purpose.
All right, everybody's in position. So what we're going to do now is we're going to move on to 5D. Right here we have a discussion regarding an update on the status of various park projects, and Nick is going to take that. Come on up, Nick.
Nick Wentworth, Carson City Parks Project Manager, for the record. Bear with me 1 second. What changes?
You can hit enter.
So just gonna run through some of the projects that have been completed in the last, I went back through last summer, so last year and a half-ish, and then stuff that we are currently working on or in progress, and then also up and coming. So some completed projects, or the major completed projects from last summer and this summer. We have Roscoe tennis courts. Were completely replaced, post-tension concrete. So those are brand new, not a Band-Aid. Seen quite a few people out there. We still need to work on the neighbors' parking situation on the north side of it, but Mac West parking lot was completed last summer also. Fuji Park Master Plan. Just recently, the Mills Park Master Plan was approved by the Board of Supervisors. Both summers, the last 2 years, we've done asphalt pathways maintenance, last summer being along the freeway bike route and various locations all over town. And then this year we tackled kind of the perimeter of Long Ranch neighborhood, which is a lot all in of itself. Also worked on Eagle Valley Golf Course cart path replacements last summer. They've had some change of staff over there, so we are just starting conversations with them on mapping out some of the bad cart paths for next year. That's some existing fiscal year funding. And then John Mankins Park tennis court was resurfaced this year. More of a Band-Aid there, just grinding the surface down to smooth. They fill in some of the cracks and inconsistencies and then resurface the entire top. And then some of our bigger projects that are in progress right now, Blackwell's Park Playground and the surrounding landscaping. Most of the landscaping's done now, all the concrete, just kind of waiting for the playground itself. There was some hiccups with the shipment of the playground components themselves, so the whole thing didn't get here. But that's being sent from the vendor now, and contractor will get that all put together, and then the final amenities, benches, trash receptacles, stuff like that, and the softball tiles that'll go around the playground itself. Had pretty good feedback from the neighboring residents that walk by on a daily basis. Everybody, of course, nobody can't ever make everybody happy, but most of the people that we've talked to about it are pretty excited. Also, a great opportunity for some turf reduction. So got rid of the grass in that immediate area, which is a little bit harder for our crews to maintain, just small little areas for small little mowers, and takes a little bit more time than getting the big mower out in the big section of the park. Lone Mountain Cemetery irrigation upgrade from last summer has been a 2-year battle with NV Energy. We are finally at the finish line. NV Energy, myself and the park maintenance coordinator over there at the cemetery installed all of the conduit and vault and 840 feet of trenching 5 feet deep through the cemetery to bring new primary power out to the middle. But the contractor just hooked it all up. Just have a couple little bugs to work out there as far as programming with the pump, and then we can finally sign that one off after 2 years. It's been exhausting, to say the least. Outdoor pool plaster is in progress right now. That should be wrapped up here in the next few weeks, I believe. Mills Park sidewalk replacements they started, you can see the picture in the lower left there was started last month, and they've got a bunch of sidewalk replacements besides that to do before winter gets here. We'll be doing the same thing over at Carriage Square. So in design or contracted work, Centennial tennis courts have bounced around with funding. We are finally in a place where we can replace all 8 of those. That's in design at Public Works right now. The Mills Park Maintenance Shop is designed and is contracted with Coons Construction. We've been struggling to get a building permit for 4 months. I know Coons Construction and myself are both antsy to get that one started and get at least the concrete done before the weather turns on us here. Governor's Field 3 improvements, we are in design with Lloyd Sports Engineering for full synthetic Little League field at Governor's. I think the consensus is at some point we're going to end up going to synthetic turf on most of our sports fields, and feeling as we might as well dive into it sooner than later. It's inevitable that it's going to happen living in our climate and region, and just with trying to save water and also reducing maintenance there. So go ahead, Kurt.
With that Field 3, are we gonna work on some improvements for next season?
It'll be open next year.
It'll be open next year. So we're working on opening for Little League next year, because it's been closed for the last couple of years. Am I correct?
Just
in
this
that?
year.
Was it just closed this year?
Yeah, just this baseball season, it was closed, and Dave can elaborate, but I believe it's pretty well ready to go for next year's Little League
Thank you,
season.
Dave.
Yeah, on that, this is for the record, this is Dave Navarro, Park Operations Superintendent, let's see, Chair and Commissioners. So what we're doing to Field 3, and it's already actually been done, is we went in there and did an aggressive aerification to open everything up. And then we brought in about 50 yards of fuzzy topsoil, and we filled in all of like the low areas in there. And then after we did that, we overseeded that area, let that sit for a couple weeks. Then we came in again and we slit seeded it. So hopefully that will get some germination before it gets like too cold. So then that field can be used in the spring. It's not going to be up to the same standards as the other ones, but at least it should be playable for the spring season, because we know that the construction of that field to go all artificial is probably going to be another year or 2 out. So knowing that, we wanted to go ahead and make that field playable like for this next spring.
Great, thank you very much for that update.
So the rough cost estimate before it goes all the way through the design process is that it will likely cost, $750,000 to to dig it all out, put in a subsurface drainage system, and then put down the base and synthetic turf. So right now, our tentative plan is to take the existing funding. We'll probably need a little bit more to get to the halfway point, hopefully a CIP request this spring, and then looking at going after a land and water grant in March of '24 to double our money. That's a 1-to-1 match. So if we can get to 400,000-ish local funding, then we should be able to get an LWCF grant to double it and pay for that.
This is kind of out of left field, but have we considered at all if we were able to make Field 3 playable for the next couple of years? I know the premier field out there for Little League is Field 2. Field 2 because of the positioning, the sun and so forth, the evening games and all. Have we ever thought of keeping Field 3 that way and spending the money possibly on Field 2, since it is the premier field out there?
So the problem with Field 3 is, and the reason that it's in the condition that it was in last year, is it's the lowest point in the complex. So all the runoff and the sheeting during any storm goes to that field. It's the closest to the ditch, so it's the easiest. We have to do something about the drainage on field 3. So there's no, and yeah, it would make sense. The ultimate goal would be to replace at least half of them, or if not all of them at some point in the next 10, 12 years. But for the time being, it needs some sort of repairs. So I wouldn't think it would be very wise to go in and invest $400,000 into putting a subsurface drainage system in and then leaving it turf and ultimately having some of the same results. We did a geotech survey and they dug test pits 8 feet deep, and it's like 85% clay material. So the water can't go anywhere once it gets there. It just sits and soaks in, and not a lot of planning before.
Well, thank you for that explanation. It just flashed in front of me when you were talking about 3, and I thought of 2 being the premier and how much it would cost to put turf on 3. I thought
Now
I'd
that
throw
you're the
that.
chair, if you want to chip in the other
Yeah.
$750,000, we'll name field 3 after
I
you,
do
and we'll
not
do
want
turf
any-
over there
I don't
too.
need anything named after me, but thank you very much. So.
I'm on the Little League board now, so I'll take care of it. Uh-oh. Okay, so after Field 3, so Governor's Field building replacements, that is the umpire and storage building between Fields 2 and 3, and then also the announcer's booth for Field 3 were both cited in the 2021 Public Works Facilities Assessment as needing replaced. They were beyond repair. Those are both in contract with CXT, prefab building vendor out of Oregon. Starting production right now. Public Works is designing the civil sheets for the demolition and site prep to be able to place those buildings there. I was hoping for opening day of Little League season next year, but that seems to be dwindling away quickly.
Since I spent a lot of time out there, I have lots of questions. So, does the Governor's Field building have accommodations for the umpires?
Yes, so it'll be half storage, half umpire. We're both losing some square footage. Maintenance staff is losing some space, and so are the umpires. But the hope is that it's forces everybody to be a little bit more organized and decide what to hold on to and what we don't need to keep.
All right, thank you again.
Mills Park Pickleball Complex, we are just getting into contract with Lloyd Sports Engineering there. Also a separate firm for survey, and then another one for the geotechnical investigations at that site. So just getting into design with that one. I would anticipate probably anywhere from 3 to, well, probably closer to 6 months of design before we hopefully in the spring can put that out to bid and looking at construction next summer. That would be upgrading or replacing the 2 existing tennis courts that haven't been used in who knows how long with post-tension slab like we did at Ross Gold for the tennis courts, but a little bit bigger size too, so that it's works for tournament play, that sort of thing. The Riverview Trailhead rehabilitation was the latest SNPLMA grant that was awarded for round 19. That was just recently awarded, but that doesn't put money, or that doesn't put the project, wheels on the ground or wheels in motion for another year, likely. We are just starting the SNPLMA round from before that for Prison Hill West. So hopefully in a year or so, we're getting into design and working with engineering firm to start designing that new parking lot and trailhead rehab. The only thing that'll stay there as is the Korean War Memorial. May do some landscaping upgrades around that, but the memorial will stay intact. The rest of that parcel is going to be reviewed or just reimagined as a functioning parking lot. It's one of the busiest trailheads we have in town. I live 3 houses up the street. It's my kid's bus stop, and there's people there every day, all day long, probably hours they shouldn't be there too. Fuji Park Arena expansion is in design right now to push the walls, the permanent walls of the arena out and open the doors to more diverse crowd, events, motorsports, things like that. We've had little to no rodeo or equestrian events there in the past 5 or 6 years. It really has kind of dwindled to that. It'll still be available for those kinds of events, but we just want to make it more functional for more groups and bigger events. Robert's House fence replacement. Yep.
I had a question on the Fuji arena expansion. Yeah, is that just the arena expansion, or does it also have something to do with the barn area?
Just the arena.
Just the arena. Okay, thank you.
Yep. The Robert's House fence replacement, we did check with SHPO on that, and because the original white picket fencing was not historically accurate or was not part of the house, they gave us the okay on that, so we should have a contractor in there anytime. He's done an 811 ticket already. That's gonna be, they call it lifeguard fencing, but it's just your basic decorative metal fence. We went with white. There's already some white fencing just like that around the porch, and with all the trim on the house and the carriage house being white, it just made a lot more sense. So it costs us a little bit more to have all those panels powder coated white before they're installed, but the arbors will stay. None of them are rotten. They're all in good shape other than probably needing a coat of paint, but this will just be the actual fencing sections themselves on Carson Street and Rice Street. Long Ranch playground fencing, same thing. We've got quotes, but that'll be similar metal fencing, but in black, a little bit away from the playground itself to not necessarily make the kids or parents that are inside that space feel caged. We're going to include some of the lawn around it. Its bigger purpose is to keep the dogs out. So, and then Carriage Square sidewalk replacements will happen this fall also. That was similar funding to the Mills Park sidewalk replacements, $75,000. We've got Casanelli taking care of Carriage Square, and Newt Concrete's taking care of Mills Park. So that should be wrapped up before we get too much weather, or that's the hope. And that's it. Any questions?
Thank you, Chairman Meyer. Thanks for the presentation, Nick. That's enlightening. A couple things. Restroom replacements, they were on the list there too, for Mills Park. Is that timing on that possibly coincident with the pickleball court improvements, or how's that look time-wise?
I'm still seeking clarification on how to make that work with federal funding. Because to my knowledge, design build is tricky. We know Sparks did it, but we need to keep digging and make sure we do it the right way. We are somewhat running out of time because it's a long timeline in order to make that work. As you're aware with the pickleball, there's a lot of red tape with the federal funding. So we still need some clarification as to how to go out to contract for those prefab restrooms.
Okay, just like to emphasize that's a real need. I mean, right now, we pretty much have swim center and the community, this building is our fallbacks, and that's not the best, as you know. I guess corollary to that is there are plans for concession stand. Is that also in the master plan that's there?
So another, I guess, piece of that I didn't include in the presentation is I'm going to BLM on Thursday to seek their approval, but we are applying for another SNPLMA grant. This will be round 20. the round following the one that we just received for Riverview, to go after complete implementation of the Mills Park Master Plan.
Okay.
So that would be
Included in
the
that.
remaining, the third restroom at Mills, concession stand, everything that was on the master plan that isn't currently funded from another source.
Okay, thank you. Last, I think this is my last question. We talked a little bit about court lighting, and since the mayor's here, I want to mention this just to get the ball rolling or some thoughts happening. As I understand it right now, the lights are not functioning partly because the neighborhood there got something passed through Board of Supervisors several years back that doesn't permit those lights to be used. We would hope that at least we have infrastructure in place for the new courts and possibly the existing courts to add lighting at some point in the future when we have the funds to do that. And I'd like to get the mayor thinking about maybe looking into that and seeing what might need to be done on the board's part to enable that, should we be able to afford it. I think that's all I had. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Dave.
Whoops, okay. You said the Centennial Park stuff is in Public Works for design? Have
The
you?
tennis courts, yes.
Yeah, have you projected how long that's gonna take and when we might expect work to begin on the tennis courts?
So it's federal funding, that's from ARPA as well. That money needs to be encumbered by December of '24. So we need to be in contract for construction by December of next year,
Oh, so it's
which
gonna
would
be
likely put construction in summer of '25.
25. Oh, okay. Okay, well, we waited long enough, so that's okay. What happened with the gazebo at Ross Gold? Since I told you I'd rather have the tennis courts than the gazebo, you recall? So now I feel bad. Did the gazebo die?
No, I can't remember the exact path of it, but the money moved around and then the money was put back. I actually just got 2 new quotes. My old quotes to do the pavilion at Ross Gold were from 2021, I think. I just
Oh.
got updated quotes
Oh, a
last week.
pavilion. Okay,
And
yeah.
we need to figure out exact location. There's 2 locations on the master plan, and just kind of need to put some pieces together, write up a scope of work and get some quotes. We can, essentially, we could order the pavilion or shade shelter, and that's probably the route we'll go, is order it directly. Parks will pay for it, and then hire a contractor to do the site prep and install it,
So maybe next summer for picnics? Okay.
hopefully.
Okay. And then go back to Centennial again. Oh, about the backboard, something I read said we were gonna be responsible for tearing down the existing structure. We, the parks people. Did I read that?
We can
I
probably
haven't been out
make,
there, so I don't know if it's even still there.
it's there. It's
Oh.
pretty rotten.
Oh, yeah.
Still see people use it though. I would personally like to incorporate the practice wall into the back of one of the tennis courts and to free up that center space as more of, for a shade shelter or more of a kind of plaza center in the center of all the courts. It's in design,
Yeah.
but. you
Well,
know,
it's really nice to
nothing-
have a backboard like that to play, to wait while you're waiting for a court to become free. So if you, wherever it ends up being, that would be a good thing to do. Okay, that's me.
Hi, Nick. Thanks for coming tonight. I do want to talk to you about pavement again eventually. But my first question is on the Fuji Arena expansion. A while back, we looked at a master plan concept for that. I don't think it was like our first review of it, but I can't recall if the arena expansion was part of that. Do you know off the top of your head?
Yes, so Fuji Master Plan was approved by the Board of Supervisors, and that included arena and grandstand improvements. It wasn't really completely spelled out. The Fuji Park, it was redevelopment funds, and we discussed at that time the redevelopment board authorized us to move forward with the arena expansion with the existing funds.
Awesome. Thank you. I just wanted to make sure on that. And then my neighborhood park is Riley Circle. It's been on the chopping block. Like it's supposed to be demolished or something. Is that still happening? Is that on your project list?
Our original intention with we don't have a playground master plan. We have had numerous internal discussions with maintenance staff. I'm a certified playground safety inspector. We have another one on staff. And we have more playgrounds per capita in this town than any neighboring community by a lot. They're expensive. They have a shelf life. When they reach a certain age, you can't get parts for them anymore. When playgrounds don't get used, it's kind of, it's hard to sink money into playgrounds that kids aren't using. That is definitely one of the ones that we've looked at not replacing when it expires. Some of our original discussions were just to take it out. That, Sunland Vista, various others. Kurt talked us off the ledge of getting rid of Sunset so that it will never go away after
I remember that.
all the hateful messages and phone calls I've received about that one.
I only talk to the people that are walking their dogs to the park with their toddlers.
I think you gave all of them my email address and phone number.
But I did tell them that anyway, well, that worked out.
Sunland, or I'm sorry, Riley Circle after 7 years on maintenance staff is probably the least used playground and park that I am aware of. I can't reasonably see why we would spend $500,000+ to replace it when it hits the end of its lifespan. I've had a little bit more thought as to, using resources to go get rid of something that's functional at this point. But as different elements of that playground fail or break, we likely will not replace them. We will just make it as safe as we can, or ensure that it's safe. As long as it's safe to use, if it's minus a couple of components, I guess then that's fine. But at some point, we're going to have to figure out what to do with that silly cul-de-sac in the middle of 6 trailers that somehow became a park.
Yeah, I'd love to look into the history on that. Like I said, it's my neighborhood park. It's the park I take my 2-year-old to. It's the park my mom takes my 2-year-old to and takes the 1-year-old to, and the neighborhood kids go to that park. I bet it's not used as frequently as other parks, but it is used. I'm there. I talk to the kids that are there. They ask them how often they're at the park, and there are kids in my neighborhood who use it. Not that I want you to replace it, but I would like to know so I can tell people there when it will be demolished, what we're going to replace it with. And that doesn't have to be a conversation we have tonight. I just would like to know so I can have those conversations.
If you're in the market, we could talk to the property manager at Public Works and maybe we could put it up for sale.
Well, we could. My spouse has offered to fix that park himself, and I had to talk him off that ledge because we don't have the liability insurance for that. But he has threatened. And then my last and favorite topic is the trails and the asphalt repaving. And a concern was brought up earlier about the heat coming off of that pavement, and I was wondering if we do any sort of climate analysis or comfort analysis on those trails, and if we can consider doing that going forward or looking at replacing it with cooler materials like concrete when it's at the end of its life, not right now, but as those trails degrade and we think about replacement, maybe a cooler material.
I almost thought you were going to ask me about this, and I read an article last week about the sealants that they put on asphalt it has been done in the Phoenix area and stuff like that, a white or light gray coating. And I don't know exactly what the cost would be to apply that, but there was some testing done, and you're looking at a solid 3-degree difference from like 124 to 121. And that's in the middle of the day in the heat of the summer. I can't say that that's probably cost effective for, the middle section of the day, 3 months out of the year. This year, we had temps in the high 90s for much shorter, I feel like, than our normal summers. Usually it seems like we stay in the high 90s for months on end, and this year it was a quick 4 to 6 weeks and it was over. So I appreciate that, and I think that, I'm always open to ways to better improve those amenities for the community. We are short on funds for lots of things, and so it's hard to narrow down what the priorities are.
Well, thank you, and I appreciate those paths. They help me get around the town. Thank you.
Since we're moving this way, I'll just jump in. Thank you for the presentation. It's really exciting to see all the things that are in the works and that have been completed. Those tennis courts look magnificent, and I don't play tennis, but it makes me want to learn. So thank you very much. I don't know if this is the right time or not, but since our mayor's in the audience, I'm gonna bring this up because it's about two or three years running. But in 1996, when we passed the Question 18 ballot initiative, specifically on that ballot initiative, it had a line about gateways. And I really am passionate about getting that gateway at the north end of Carson Street updated. I mean, it quite frankly is terrible for somebody to come into our community and see those first three ugly medians. And we have Question 18. I know that what we were looking at with the transportation went back and forth and stuff. And I know that budget cycle's coming up. And I just want to keep it on people's radar because it means a lot. It means a lot when people are coming to our community, and that's one of the first things they see. So there, I'm off my, but anyway, the presentation was wonderful, excited about everything.
Thank you.
And I'll move down this way.
Thank you very much for the presentation, and it's amazing everything that is happening. It's like, wow. Sitting on several of these boards and hearing the different, presentations over the years, it's really nice to see it come to fruition. Back to the Fuji arena expansion, if I remember correctly from some of the different meetings, yes, the arena area as well as the bleachers, with the idea that then it is more usable, then it is perhaps a place that will be a draw, which is the intent. So I appreciate that because we have the infrastructure for that. We have the corrals that really were amazing during the Caldor fire, and I really think it is an incredible resource. So I support that. In regards to Leah's comment about the sealant, I appreciate that so much, and something I would like to keep in mind or to put out there that it might be just 3 degrees, but that's cumulative as well, and 3 degrees day in, day out really does have a huge impact, especially when we think about warming climate and, it gets down to a 2-degree issue sometimes. And so I think the cumulative, while it's not really a discussion we're having right now, I appreciate that it was mentioned because as we're budgeting and as we're looking, it is that long-term impact. So thank you. And I think that is it. I know I'm forgetting something, but I'll find my notes.
Hey, does anybody out there in the public want to talk about this presentation? Or is there anybody, did we raise any questions as we move down? I'm sorry, Jennifer, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Jennifer Budge, Parks and Recreation Director. As you can see, Nick has a really significant workload. He manages all those projects that he talked about, and he didn't even talk about all of his projects that he has on his plate. So I do want to thank Nick for all of his hard work. And I wanted to point out on the Lone Mountain Cemetery project, he kind of underplayed the amount of work and effort that him and park staff put in. But they saved us over $50,000 by doing a lot of the labor in-house. And Nick's not only a certified playground safety inspector, but he's also a experienced heavy equipment operator. So he did a lot of that work that we didn't have to contract out because he has that skill set. And not a lot of project managers have that, so we're really lucky to have him. So I'll stop embarrassing him, but I just wanted to thank him for all of his hard work.
You're welcome.
It's only right in front of me on top. So on on the playground, in terms of safe to use, and yes, kudos. We have wonderful playgrounds, and it is so difficult in terms of not only the maintenance and the insurance and all of it. As a playground comes kind of to the end of its life, is it possible to downsize versus eliminate? Or are the issues still, are they the same issues and the same costs, even though it's fewer or less equipment?
So what happens is, say your slide breaks.
Mhm.
You cannot get a replacement slide. Well, you only have 3 or 4 major playground manufacturers, you know, that build playgrounds that are up to municipal standards. They're not compatible with each other, of course, because why would they be? So that, take for instance, just an example, Miracle Playgrounds. We have several that are built by the Miracle Company. As technology changes, their designs change. They don't make a slide that the entry point is 41.5 inches anymore. So you can't legally put a piece of plywood over it or tape it off. Now you need another panel from them to slide into that 41.5 inch space to close that section off where you would walk into a slide and enter it. If they don't make anything that fits that space anymore, there's nothing you can put there that passes a playground safety audit.
Okay.
A piece of plywood doesn't work, fencing, anything homemade repair like that doesn't pass the test. So we're stuck with putting temporary fencing around playgrounds like Ronald D. Wilson right now. Fuji, half the time I feel like has fence around it. It just, that's the way it is. And lead times on ordering the different components can be a year to a year and a half
Mhm.
to get a large slide or something. And on top of it costing, you know, $5,000 plus. Now you have to wait a year and a half to get it, and we're paying rental fees to have temporary fence around it. So once they kind of surpass that life expectancy of 20 to 25 years, the likelihood of being able to get parts, the manufacturers likely don't even make them anymore. So
That is really helpful, and thank you, because I think sometimes as, the community members, it's like, well, why don't we just fix it? Or why don't we, like I said, maybe downside or just have this? But there's so much more to it, so thank you for sharing that.
So, anybody else want to talk about this? We have public comment on this.
Denny French, Carson City, Nevada. I am thrilled to see people out enjoying the pickleball court. I have gone on several occasions just to watch bugs and birds and such there, and I've enjoyed the people enjoying it. I also am pleased to hear that the tennis courts are coming back because I feel they have been a little bit of a slack off by the city, and that was unfortunate. And I'm really sad about the fact that playground equipment is not built to last a child's lifetime. But the deal is that I would like to encourage the city to get involved with companies that are able to be further in their vision of things and be able to expand into adjustable and pull apart parts to make adaptations as the equipment ages. And so it would be like a a snap bead type situation and in modules. And that's not what's been happening. We've bought a module or a unit, and we've said, okay, it may have this much life depending on the sun and the materials. I worked at a golf course. We kept having sprinklers break on us. I kept thinking it was me and my tools or something like that to start out with, and then all the other guys chipped in and said, well, no, we've had that happen. I turned out to be part of an inventors group up in Reno that a gentleman was part of the makers of several of those type of brand plastic sprinkler heads. And he had to admit that they did not take into consideration the salts and the herbicides and pesticides, and that the brittleness of the units was because of those interactions. And so I think that if we get with a company that's progressive enough to keep up with newer materials, we'd be better off. And as far as the lighting at, I think you were led down a path of we're going to do this and it's going to be there, but they're not really equipping it like they suggested, and that you're looking for ability to get that okayed. I was told originally that they couldn't be there at the pickleball courts with lights because the neighborhood said no. And apparently that's held for a bit. And so I didn't expect them to put them there in the final plan. They were going to put those out where they were considering the dog park area, because that area was not going to be used because of the water there. They didn't want to have to modify it to allow for the dogs. You can't have running water with the dog park near. So the areas where they were suggested to me as having to be in certain areas, either because electrical for that causeway for the area on the big field was picked because the electrical would be more convenient there. The shop area was picked because electrical and other issues were available to be tended. I don't think we're farsighted enough. I think that we're short-sighted and we want to take care of things when we get a bunch of money, and I don't think we're considering as much as we should about artificial turf. I've done a lot of looking into it, and I don't know why no one else has found what I have. It's very discouraging. Dumps don't want any of the remains of it. They're already talking about the concerns about the environmental impacts it has. And I'm going, I worked for a city that had fields and parks and such, and we were able to maintain, of course, maybe not with the use that you're looking towards, but I'm suggesting that we're not thinking as deeply and considering as appropriately as we should. I think there are things that we are just overpassing because it's convenient and will be nice and it's a huggable moment. And I certainly appreciate all your efforts. I can't imagine what you do. I do not appreciate the asphalt idea. I do appreciate your bringing up the heat matter. And I think that we are not taking into things. I'd like to know what environmental
And I
impact.
think your 3 minutes is up,
I'm
sir.
sorry, I was watching the timer and it
So
wasn't.
was I, and I don't know what's going on with it, but
Well, it makes it a little hard for me to figure out how.
I apologize for that.
I apologize too, but
So,
I'll have a final comment. Thank you.
thank you very much. Jennifer.
Sorry, Mr. Chair, Jennifer Budge, Parks and Recreation Director. We've had a few calls about the pickleball courts and the markings on the court. So I just wanted to clarify for the public and everybody here that, the city has a contractor, Odyssey, and they're just markings of existing utilities. And it's water-based paint, so the, markings will go off of the court the first time it rains. So I just want to clarify that for everybody. We're not ripping them out right now. There's no need to panic. We are doing improvements, but as part of site survey work, we have to, know where all the utilities are and everything, do all the due diligence. So that's all it is. No worries. Still playable courts.
And I'll acknowledge, Dave, they got a little crazy with the pink paint. I mark our 811 tickets and I do not put that much paint on hard surfaces, but it was a little over the top.
Dave.
Thank you, Chairman. I'd like to address Mr. French's concerns about the location of the pickleball courts. We had an engineer's estimate, and Nick can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe just to prepare that area out in the middle where we had originally proposed the courts being, no court construction, nothing other than the preparation of that area to receive courts was $750,000. Our ARPA funding is $500,000. So we made a strategic decision to relocate to an area where we could get some courts for the amount of money that we have. And that was that was a budget consideration, not, I mean, there was really no other choice.
Maybe at the end of the meeting. So, am I confident to move on here? Okay, great. Well, once again, thank you for your presentation. Wonderful to see all those projects that are in play and that have been completed. So, with that, we're going to move on to 5E. That's discussion only regarding a possible creation of a policy regarding private use and instruction at the Carson Public Recreation Facilities. And Mr. Dan Arp is going to come up and give us that presentation. Welcome, Dan.
Thank you, Dan Arp, for the record, Recreation Superintendent. So this is just something that our Director Jen and I have been talking about for a while, of developing some sort of a policy because we don't have one on private commercial use in our public facilities and parks. And before we dove into that policy, we wanted to just kind of bring up some of the things that we're seeing and get your feedback to help us get your guidance on how we should go about that policy. So just kind of some of the things that we've been seeing over the past several years, mainly at the MAC and at the aquatic facility, where you'll have private instructors who will teach either basketball clinics, private lessons, or private swim lessons. Those are the things that we see the most at our facilities. And then also in our parks, we have, we especially during COVID and post-COVID, we've been hearing a lot about classes that are going on in the parks, such as yoga. How do we manage that? And how do we go about, because we like seeing these things happening. We want our facilities to be used, but at the same time, they are public assets. And so we want to make sure that they're being used properly. We also, the main concern, just want to make sure that is there any liability of these things happening on our property that we need to be aware of? Are there certificates or insurance that we should be collecting that we're not, because we don't have a policy in place? And so what we've been doing is we have tried to research what's going on in other cities, and it's kind of all over the board as far as how they manage that. So some cities just don't allow it, period. Any commercial use whatsoever, not allowed. It only can be programming through the Parks and Rec Department or a contracted instructor that is partnered with the Parks and Rec Department. Some of them just require that they have to, if it's like an indoor facility, they have to rent the space, following the rental fees, and some require that they provide a certificate of insurance, adding the city as additionally insured. So those are kind of the different things that we're seeing, and we want to get some feedback. Our main concern, we just want to make sure, that a lot of this is being done during drop-in time, and so we want to make sure that we're respecting that drop-in usage for its purpose, for community members to be able to come in and use that space. And so if somebody's claiming a half court to teach a basketball clinic, there hasn't been any issues as far as any aggressive issues or anything like that. But are they open to, if we put other people to just show up to put on their court while they're trying to run a clinic? Because that's what drop-in time is supposed to be. So should we be doing it a different way? Should they be coming at a different time, reserving the facility, paying different fees, or just the drop-in fees? So a lot of different questions on how we manage it, a lot of different ways we could manage it. And so we just wanted to see if you had opinions and any feedback and advice that you would like us to consider as we go into that policy and how we want to manage that. I think, yeah, it's kind of a discussion item, right? If Jen has anything to add, feel free.
So I guess what we'll do is I'm going to start over here on my page. Did you have any questions?
Oh.
I'm going to go in order again. It makes it easier for me.
Whoops.
Well, I know we've had some discussion about this around the pickleball instruction, and so far, I think what you've done has been adequate. I can foresee in the future, when we get our new courts and we have more activity there, perhaps some kind of policy needed for, and maybe more than a policy, there may be some new mechanism for managing that space to take maximum advantage of it. So that's about the only thoughts I have right now.
Dave, for what you said so far, what you've done, would you explain that to the commission as far as what has he done and how have you addressed that?
Well, I think Dan is probably better equipped for that, but I understand
Either or.
we have a contract instructor at the MAC for pickleball, is that correct?
So, yes, I can provide what we've done, and I could probably give some extra context to what maybe scenarios we're seeing hypothetically. But so for pickleball specifically, or anything that's related to that, we do have contract instructors. So when applicable, and not every scenario fits this, but if somebody has a business license and they're certified, if there is a certification for that industry, we might partner with them doing a contract instruction agreement, and where they basically run a small business, partnered with us. We provide the facility for free. We do marketing, we do registration because we're equipped to do all that. But then they have the special skills to teach pickleball in this case, or we do fitness classes, lots of different contract instruction. So we like to do those, but that doesn't always fit. And so I think one example where we haven't had this issue that I know of, but what could happen and what we want to have a policy in place for pickleball, we get the new courts. So what happens if during the pickleball time when everyone's there for drop-in, now if someone's taking a court and they're teaching lessons, they're charging people, and it's not through us, right? So they're just charging people on their own privately to come in and take one of those public courts away from the community to teach their private lessons and run their industry. How do we manage that? So in pickleball, we see that in tennis sometimes. And like I said, we're seeing it at the MAC basketball. We're seeing it as there's private swim lessons. Are there safety issues with that that we need to be aware of, that kind of thing? And obviously, we want to see some of those things happen if possible, especially like swim lessons, for example. We don't have a private swim lesson program in place. So when that's happening, that means there's more kids getting taught swim lessons, and that's a safety thing. We want that to happen, but at the same time, are those people certified? Do they have the right credentials to be teaching swim lessons? If something were to happen during their lessons, would there be liability on the aquatic facility, even though we're not the ones teaching it, right? So those are the things that we just want to make sure we're addressing.
Dennis, do you have any comments?
Yeah, I urge you to pursue developing a policy. I'm afraid I don't have any insight of which way you ought to go, but I've seen it on the tennis courts where somebody comes in with a huge bucket of balls with some kid that doesn't know how to hit the ball, and we're over here trying to have a nice match, and their balls are flying over here. The instructor takes no responsibility for anything. He just goes around and picks up the balls after a while, or expects us to throw them over to him. And he's getting paid for doing that. And we're losing out on access to a public court. So either we should make them register and pay to use the courts that way, or if that's too hard to enforce, then you have the ideas of other things you can do, because I'm not up on that one. But it really is irritating, and especially when we've been down on the number of courts that are available. So at Roscoe, there's only 2, and if some guy takes one for lessons, we're down to only 1. And there's a lot of people that want to play on those nice new courts. So I urge you to follow up on this, and I'll be happy to vote for it when it ever comes up. Thank you.
Thank you. You see you're in line.
I'm
You go
ready.
right ahead.
Yeah, I'm really excited about this policy. This is such a great problem to have. The fact that we have these small businesses in our community that are trying to make a difference and make people healthier, or teach kids to swim, or teach somebody a new skill. I think it's a fantastic problem. But like my fellow commissioner said, it is an issue, right? It's coming up at these tennis courts. It's coming up at the pickleball courts. We might see an issue at the aquatic facility with swim lessons and liability. So when I initially read through the agenda, my first thought was we can't ban this. These are our community members. They are part of our community. And then I read I think it's the Parma, Ohio policy that you included in there. So I have to know why Henderson. I kind of understand Henderson, it's in Nevada, but why Parma, Ohio as the other comparison policy?
I think it was. I think we just we had reached out to the district attorney's office. I think that was just the example that she had found, looking for something similar and comparable. So we do look at, obviously when we look at other agencies, we try to look at Nevada agencies to see what they're doing, but oftentimes we don't get examples that we want. And so one of the resources we look at is the National Parks and Recreation Association. They have like a forum, and so we'll look at, like, if you type in private instruction, this is a common issue in communities across the country, and there's quite a few discussions on it. And that's where I kind of came up with those examples across the board of whether they require rentals, they require insurance, or they just ban it altogether. But they're all from communities all over and not specifically in Nevada. I think our director, Jen, she reached out to the directors to ask this question. I think she only heard back from Sparks. And I believe Sparks' policy was just that they don't allow it, period. But that was the only example we have in northern Nevada.
I was just curious. on
Not
that
a
'cause
lot
it
of
seemed
not a
odd.
lot of data to pull from, unfortunately.
Yeah, is that database something that we have access to so we can look at that, or the discussion on the different policies?
I believe you have to be a member of the national. Oh yeah, there you go.
Oh, so we can?
Yeah.
Cool. That's excellent. Have we talked with any of these private instructors? Like, could we get them together in a stakeholder group?
We have not brought them together for like a chat on this particular topic. I think we're trying to get our heads around what direction we want to go, so that we can kind of loop them in. Because obviously, as we develop a policy, or especially after, we're going to have to communicate with them. But yeah, we have not.
Okay, so that would definitely be on my list of things to do, is like just a little outreach question, put up a little sign. I don't know what that looks like. So my other suggestion is to do a working group on this policy, kind of separate from this, where we can all discuss, sort of like we did the dogs and parks policy, and, maybe not as extensive, and Kurt is shuddering over there, so.
I thought we listened more than we talked, but anyway.
I would just love to hear from the instructors and the people who are using these instructors, because it sounds like the city and parks, we're losing out on providing these services. So maybe we can do more contract, maybe we can do more swim lessons. And if we can't, then there's this role for these private contract or non-contracted instructors to fill. And we need them to be partners in developing this policy. I don't want to put them, I want to do yoga in the park, like, somebody wants to learn how to play basketball, great. Let's figure out how we can make this work for everybody. So I think I just need more time to mull it over and research more than Henderson and Parma, Ohio.
Right, and in some cases we don't have contact information because they're just
Oh, yeah.
drop-in users, so we don't, they don't register. We don't have contact information of them, and so that's one of the things that should we have information on these people who are instructing at our facilities.
Yeah, for sure. There's so much to this, but I'm excited to dive in.
So I'll move this way. I wanted to say something. As far as this really, your speaking on this sounds like a very large undertaking because there's so many multifacets of what's going on here. I can speak pretty about the swimming lessons and so forth. For years I was there for many, many years, and one of the things what I did and what we started as far as policy was having those people, because most of the time it was staff members that wanted to teach private lessons during the open swim time. And I'm speaking for a DA that's long past gone, but it was my understanding from that DA that when somebody pays for the facility the same as they pay to go jump off the diving board for a couple hours, or the same, or play in the top pool with their youngster, that's a contract, that's an agreement. And in that agreement, you're bringing on that liability upon yourself. So when the instructor's paying and the child is paying, he said that we are free and clear. We're in good shape, that they entered into a contract with us by either buying a pass or by paying that drop-in fee to enter the facility, that now the lifeguards are watching them, and it's ultimately the lifeguard's responsibility. I understand your concern about qualifications and so forth. So that's how we played that. And then we also played that same game with the scuba instructors. And I know that's probably the way it's going on right now. The only thing that we did that surpassed just the agreement of them paying for their instructors and for the members that were coming and using the facility was that I had to have a name, a roster from them with all the dive instructors' name on it at the beginning of the year, and the liability, the waiver of, naming Carson City as second insured and so forth. And once they got through those two hoops, then they came in, and usually it was Saturday morning and took a whole lane to teach their scuba. And it was, and that's how we did it. So that's just, you probably know what I'm telling you, but for the whole commission, I wanted to explain to them, that's the way we did it at the pool. I suspect it's going on something like that right now.
Yeah, that's still the practice. And so I think we're just trying to get down, is that still the best practices today? And so we're trying to sort that out.
It's really hard. It's hard because there's going to be swim team kids that are going to stay after practice and teach the younger ones how to do flip turns, and that mom's gonna, throw them a 20. It's happened forever, and it's a big undertaking, so, and it'll be hard to catch all those nuances. But I appreciate your gusto and willing to do it, and I can't wait to see how it all turns out, and hopefully we can help you as this policy unfolds. Going this way, Lisa.
Okay. Yeah, this is a tough one. What comes to mind for me is the expectation of use. So we have a facility and built for the community use, and so the expectation would be for people, the drop-ins, to be able to take place. And I can see where some events, such as perhaps a yoga class, there wouldn't be the same kind of impact as a private tennis lesson or even a pickleball lesson or a basketball lesson at the max. So that is another variable in terms of space and available space. So then I would ask, what do we see as the need? What is the need for the community? Is there a need? Is there a desire for the opportunity for people to, really hone their skills with pickleball and learn how to play tennis and learn basketball skills above and beyond what is offered in a league? And so then if there is a need, would there be an appetite for us reaching out for instructors, those, the contracted or licensed instructors, kind of like an RFP to see, this where the community would really love an opportunity to learn, to enhance their skills here. What to speak to what you just said about somebody coming in to pay, or they're paying, and so then they're able to use it, and that might be covered. That makes sense, except I think of when you pay to, go into the MAC or swim, you're paying to participate. I don't see that payment the same as paying to teach, paying to rent a space in order to teach. And so there lies some of the conflict, because again, this is public space. And so it's not there to provide a space for private lessons unless that has been worked through and there's a policy, and between this time and this time you have X amount of hours or whatever to do that. So, which because that's why you're asking us for ideas. So I'm talking in circles, but it just shows the difficulties. So the way forward, so a partnership opportunity would be the way forward if it's something that we're going to allow. Otherwise, it is a city facility being used for private use, which concerts, you know, I know that there's, granted with a nonprofit, you might be able to waive once, but then the other times the nonprofits are paying, right? Or the other, you know, if a concert is given, that they're actually paying for the use of that space. So I think there needs to be some consistency there. Hope that made sense.
And did, thank you.
Yeah, so the biggest thing I would think of is the risk that all of this is putting on the city. Because say, for example, and my kids have attended many of these private lessons on city property, public parks. We've been to tennis lessons, we've been to swim lessons, we've been to Mills Park for soccer instruction. Yeah, so, and they're all, whether or not they've been, you know, just even a high school student doing a swim lesson on teaching my daughter how to dive, and to, you know, a group setting from a soccer coach who did not at the time have his own business, but now has his own business. And while I'm sitting there watching my kids, I'm thinking, wow, I wonder what would happen if one of them did get injured. Who is liable? Is it I'm not thinking it was going to be him because he did not have a business license. So would it be the city then using, because they got injured at Mills Park, you know, at that point as well? And so it does bring up a lot of issues on this end. And I think it's something that it's unfortunate if it does put small businesses, you know, at risk of losing income. But at the same time, the city has to be, they have to look out for their own and the general liability. I did find a policy that I thought was quite interesting, and I just sent it to Jen, but it was from the city of Fate, Texas. And what they did is they had, you know, permit requirements, you know, saying that if it was 4 or more in that lesson, then it required a permit. But it did have them where these individuals had to have $1 million of general liability insurance, which I think is extremely important to have on that end. They did have to have a business license. And I'm conflicted because, you know, I look at when my daughter comes back, you know, from college, you know, she wants to be able to earn some extra money and maybe teach some soccer lessons. And I look at that and I say, well, where? You know, where is she going to be able to do that? And, you know, I don't know that there is an easy answer to that, because I definitely don't want somebody coming back and suing myself for my daughter, you know, so I get all of that. I don't know if there's a possibility of getting into MOUs with, you know, different businesses or what with the city as well on that. But, sorry, but running a business myself, you know, I mean, a nonprofit, we get the permits that are needed for the facilities that we use for the city and for the, you know, the different offices or the different meeting rooms. You know, we go through that all as well. And so I think it's important that us here as a commission, we are here as commissioners for the city. And I think that we need to keep the city out of risk. Mm-hmm.
Just thank you, Mr. Chair. Jennifer Budge, Parks and Recreation Director. I really feel for the people that teach private instruction. Teaching swim lessons for me helped me get through college. And when I worked for the city of Reno, the policy there was you paid a drop-in fee for you and your student, even if you were an employee, but you could still teach a lesson. And they had certain time slots that you could teach, and, you know, and so it wouldn't interfere. And it was pretty lax, but I made way more money teaching private lessons than I did my hourly salary at the city of Reno. So I can really appreciate that. And I want more people to recreate. We want people to be healthy. We want them to be well, and we want them to be participating safely and learn more about these sports. So I think there's definitely kind of two sides. Some things that I've heard from the public, I just want to share with you so you can kind of hear. I have gotten complaints about tennis courts, pickleball courts, basketball courts. I think Dan probably hears more about the pool than I probably would. But about private instructors taking up space, and especially when there's people waiting, especially at the pickleball courts, you know, there's time slots during the day that are very popular, and then it kind of waves down. So if we can encourage people to go during like those non-popular hours, especially if it's adult lessons, when they might be retired or not working and have more flexibility rather than right before school or right after school, those prime times, I think that's always good. How we go about doing that is also like the quandary. But one thing we really heard about when we were going through the rifle range policies, because we do have CCW classes, for example, and businesses put those on. And obviously, it's a very high risk facility. We have very robust rules, regulations, and policies related to that facility. But it is also an example we want to talk about when we're trying to be fair and equitable with all of our recreation facilities. So if you're a private business and you're teaching a CCW class, you have to rent one of the bays at the facility. You have to have insurance, you have to have a range safety officer certification, you have to have all these things to be able to do that. And they're paying for that private space, and they can have, you know, one student or, you know, 20 students, it's the same fee, but they have a space that's secured for them to be able to create a safe opportunity. But one thing we heard during all of those policy developments was the impression that private businesses could be profiting from a public facility. So that's sort of what came up during the range, and we do hear that when people do that. So these are publicly funded facilities and public facilities, but in the policy for the rifle range, the Board of Supervisors was very clear that those private businesses and private use or reservations could not be more than 50% at any time of the facility. So the public is always the priority at that facility, but we provide opportunities for those businesses and that private instruction because we want people to shoot out there, but we want them to be safe and by certified people. So I get that that's sort of a specialized case, but we want to consider that as we look at these other facilities because it's really important. And obviously those policies were not only to make sure that the public is a priority, but that safety is a priority. So we have that. And when we have these pop-up classes that show up at our parks, there's a lot of yoga classes we've discovered at John Menkins, at Mills Park. There's other classes and other activities. When there's an activity at one of our parks, the perception, if someone's teaching a class, is that instructor is certified or knows what they're doing, whether we gave them permission or not. So if you're at a city park taking a yoga class, one might think that that person knows what they're doing and I'm not going to hurt myself with what I'm doing. But things do happen in that liability. We do have recreation immunity in Nevada, and that does protect the city to a certain point. But, you know, when it's unauthorized, if they're just doing that, you know, we need to talk about that too. We want people to recreate. We do have a mechanism if someone maybe is a certified yoga instructor and wants to just do free classes for the public, they can become a volunteer and we can have them teach classes and go that route. Or they can be a contract instructor as well, where we share that percentage like Dan talked about. I think there's a lot of mechanisms in place right now to be able to have that. And Dan always puts something in our activity guide. We're always open for instructors. So we are always kind of advertising and encouraging people to become a contract instructor. But it is a little bit challenging for the average person to do it because they do need a business license. That's not very costly, but they need the insurance piece. And the National Parks and Recreation Association does have partners for low-cost insurance for those kind of mom and pop instructors. So we do have avenues and resources available to those folks to be able to do that. We can continue to work on it. I love the idea of the stakeholder group and a working group. If we do a working group, it needs to be less than a quorum just to make sure. Otherwise, we'd have to, you know, post it and go through all the hoopla. And I don't think that would probably be advantageous or productive. But I like having a stakeholder group, and we can try to work through maybe some of these things, and we can get more research and more examples from other agencies for you to consider as well. I did talk to City of Sparks. They have an ordinance. It's not actually a policy, and it totally prohibits it altogether. So if you're not a contract instructor, you cannot teach, privately at any of their facilities. So that is a Northern Nevada example, but it's a very hard line for all the reasons we talked about. So we can find out more examples, especially in Nevada, because sometimes that Nevada law, pertains to how we proceed. So as we move forward, we're happy to support that if that's at your pleasure.
Jen, you said you did talk to Sparks about that, or you read their policy?
Yeah, I talked to City of Sparks.
Okay, what kind of enforcement mechanism do they have? Are they actively enforcing that? I mean, I'm just trying to, being in recreation all my life and
Yeah.
trying to figure out how, when we get a policy in place, that enforcement mechanism is going to be really hard.
Yeah, and we didn't really have that conversation other than when people discover it, they're told they can't do that, and here's the options available to them. They don't have park rangers at City of Sparks except for at the Sparks Marina, and they're only seasonal. So they don't have a lot of the mechanisms that we might have
Okay.
to be able to enforce that if
All right.
we need to.
Well, it was kind of rhetorical, but it just
And
let
really, I
everybody
think
know that
proper
enforcement-
signage at all of our facilities, letting people know so they can make an informed decision before they're doing that activity, if they even bother to read the sign. But also just educating our staff, you don't have to get a citation right away. We can educate you. This is where you can go. This is how you need to be able to teach that class. We welcome you to do that, but we just need a couple steps from you.
Yeah, I mean, because
Yeah.
as far as at the swimming pool, it's actively supervised. The MAC is actively supervised, and the parks might have a ranger come through and see what's going on and so forth. So just bringing that up as far as once we create a policy, how are we going to go about enforcing the policy? Because people will try to become very sneaky. So anyway.
Thank you, Chairman. I'd like to echo some of Jen's comments because what I'm thinking, I don't know about the other facilities, but I know for our outdoor pickleball courts, we have a pattern of usage. I mean, it's typically in the mornings by usually 11, 12, especially in the summer latest, activities dwindle down. I think it's worth considering, what do we do with those facilities? I mean, they're there. Why not have them actively used in the off times for these kinds of things? It doesn't address the liability issue, I know that. So that's one thought. The other thing we might consider, especially when we get the new courts, those are going to be really fine. That's going to be a really fine facility. That's going to put us on the map for pickleball. I know Reno Tennis Center has a concessionaire, a pro that runs their whole program, and they have fees for their outdoor courts. I hope we don't have to. I hope we don't have the fees, but I would like to see something put in place to actually have the facility run in a professional manner, however that might be. I don't know what shape that takes place, but or what form that is. But I think those are things that we want to talk about maybe with the working group and start to think how we want to do that. So, thank you.
Janice, were you interested in comments?
Well, I was going to pick up where you left off, that if there's a policy in place, then the public that's inconvenienced by having somebody doing a lesson on a tennis court where there are people waiting, they would be able to report it to someone. The enforcement could come from the public itself and the users. But if there's no policy, all you can do is say, you people who are here from Glenbrook don't belong on our on our courts teaching lessons, and we don't have any recourse. So a policy in place would be very helpful. It would at least give us some kind of a fallback position to say, that's not allowed here. And if you have signage that says that, these courts cannot be used for private enterprise or something to that effect, then that gives backup to those of us in the public that want to make a case about it. But, so we enforce it ourselves. As long as no one pulls a gun on us.
Yeah, bringing that up, Ben, can you speak to how far would that go, or have you heard anything in the sense that I'm a public person, I'm public, this is my nephew, I'm teaching him how to play tennis, and if it appears that I'm giving him a lesson and you're saying I can't give him a lesson, that's the point that I'm making as far as the enforcement mechanism. People are gonna be sneaky, people are gonna be, and I would hate for the ladies out there to have any confrontation with myself, because I might be a mean guy and my nephew might be even meaner, that they would have to do something for. So how far could that go? I mean, would we have to pass a municipal code to say this is what our policy is?
Ben Johnson, Senior Deputy District Attorney for the record. Absolutely. I think it would depend on how the policy is written and then what kind of enforcement mechanism you would want to see. If it's something where you would want to pursue like a misdemeanor criminal citation, which is what you would get with most violation of code, that would have to be written into the code. But if it's just you're enforcing the policy, I think, it would be a matter of telling them that they can or cannot do something. And then if they persist in doing it, then of course the parks director does have the ability to eject people from, a park facility. So I don't know that it would go that route, but I think it just would depend on what kind of enforcement you're looking for and how the policy is written.
Ultimately, asking that question was ultimately to build into what we wanted to do with certain facility, and every facility might be a little bit different. Every lesson might be a little different. Can I see that since it's so multifaceted? No, or Jen, what are you guys?
I
what
think
are you
that could
envisioning?
be part of the research that we find out. Like you said, how does City of Sparks enforce this? How do these other agencies enforce it? What does it look like? What's their mechanism? Do they have a policy or an ordinance? So we can kind of see where it might need to go. And I think we could learn from a lot of other agencies that are dealing with that, and we can follow up with calls with them and work through that, maybe with a working group. And I did check with Ben, so we could have, if you want to develop a working group, we can have 2 to 3 people. Oh, look, we have volunteers.
So, Vice Chair, do you have some comments?
I do, and I
Okay.
was also raising my hand because I want to be part of the work group.
Oh. Well, I'm doing the same. I'm moving down the line here.
Okay.
You guys get ready over there.
Oh, my train of thought derailed, you guys. Heck. Hate it when that happens. Oh, on the subject that Commissioner Meyer brought up about can we have different policies in different facilities like pool and MAC, I think there's a kind of a spectrum of liability on these different sports. So shooting, obviously, that's a little bit of a danger zone. Swimming, a little bit of a danger zone. Maybe basketball, baseball, soccer. You get down into like yoga and Tai Chi and like Reiki, you're probably okay, right? You don't even touch somebody in Reiki. You're just standing there healing the air. So maybe there's a spectrum of liability here. But then I also really wanted to tie this into our new dogs in parks policy, because does this extend to dog training in parks? And I've also seen, I think it's the fire department from Truckee Meadows that comes down to Ross Gold Park, and they do their practice runs out there, hauling the hose up and down the field out there. So do we need to let them know we need their liability insurance in case their guys have a heart attack out there? I would hauling a hose, but I think there's a spectrum of danger.
I really have nothing more to add other than keeping in mind, again, the expectation of use, and that is that spectrum.
I think we've had a great conversation on this, and kind of throwing a lot of things at you. So do you have any questions for us or anything that you want clarified as far as our concerns that that we've brought to you. Did any red lights show up in your head or
No, it's,
anything like that?
we appreciate the discussion. I feel like we've gotten some clarification for sure. I'm definitely getting the sense, if this seems to be an agreement, but like, I'm not getting the sense that banning all, enterprises doesn't seem to be at the pleasure of the commission, which is at least eliminates one option that some cities are doing. I just want to kind of stepping back a little bit to what Commissioner Caldwell was talking about with having a policy to confront, if there's instruction going on. I think that when we talk about enforcement, I think that, and you said, well, you don't want to see them, having a confrontation with somebody. And I think that in that circumstance, we would always encourage people to call our rangers rather than them confronting them themselves, to call the rangers and just notify, say, hey, there's seems to be some private instruction going on at such and such a place. And then the rangers can go and educate. I think that would be the direction that we'd probably encourage. So I just wanted to make that statement as well. So, last thing we want to see is confrontation happening amongst members of the public at our facilities. But no, I feel like we have some direction. I don't know if there's anything else that you would want to add, Jen, but.
I don't think so, but just if I had Leah and Dave raising their hand to be on a work group. Anybody else? And Molly?
I would like, I could be on that if nobody else wanted. I don't want to push anything over this edge, so
I
if
think
somebody
Molly's
else wanted to do.
interested as well.
Oh, did Molly? Oh, you go right ahead, ma'am.
Okay.
You're welcome. Dave has one.
I know you're
but
wanting
I
to
think-
fight over hanging
yeah,
out with us, but
I think I'm going to get to. I think everybody up here understands the benefit. Molly understands of Jennifer's going to college and teaching private lessons. Me being in that world for so many years and so forth. I think that private lessons at these levels is wonderful for our community. In my opinion, do we need to figure out how to make it work and make everybody safe? Yes, we do. But as far as stifling anything, I don't think that anybody up here wants to do any of that. So we want to go forward and have these opportunities not only for our citizens but for those college kids coming home for the summer and wanted to earn a couple bucks. So with that, I'm going to go down to Dave. So.
Thank you, Chairman Meyer. My thought was, these facilities are built as a public good. And I think if we expand our definition of public good, we can see, and this echoes your comment too, I think, the ability for people to have instruction is a public good. And so the less restrictive we can make a policy, the more inclusive, I think, the better it is for our community. And that's my thought.
You said exactly what I was trying to say, but you said it much better. So thank you for that. So. Anybody else up here or staff that want to comment on anything that we talked about as far as this item?
I don't think so. I think Dan and I will work with the folks that volunteered to be on a work group, and we'll reach out to you and we'll set up a time to chat, and we'll try to get some additional research and some packet and some other information maybe before we meet. But we'll try to get something put together soon.
All right. So can we call that a subcommittee? Sure, work group. Because the work group, I thought the work group was, we're using two terms. I mean, one of the things we used over here was work group, and that was more of a work group with the people that are our stakeholders, the ones that are teaching the pickleball lessons and basketball lessons and things like that.
And I think this group that we'll have will help us develop if we need a stakeholder group and all those things. We'll kind of work together to figure out
Okay,
those
so
things.
talking about two
Yeah.
different things.
And we'll
Got it.
we'll report back maybe in December and next year. I think it's something that's probably going to take some time.
Okay, thank you, Jen.
Thank you.
Is there anybody in the public that wanted to comment on the private lesson policy that we have in the works? Mr. French, I suspect that you're coming up here and you want to talk to us about that. What happened with the time? There you go. Go ahead, Danny.
Danny French, Carson City, Nevada. Thank you very much, Chair and Commissioners. I agree that checking with other people to see how things work is a really good idea, and I'd like that expanded to several other subjects. And I really am for instruction places, but it's also, my concern is, Lisa Schuttes, is that my understanding is that when I feel like playing tennis and if there's a court available, I'd like to be able to use it. And I wouldn't necessarily want it monopolized by a class unless that class had been clearly posted and certain times of the day it would be classes or contractors or such. So I appreciate that. It would give me a chance to determine when to play. But thank you very much for the consideration of similarity comparisons. I'd like you to utilize that in just about everything you've talked about tonight. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Dan, any questions for us?
No, I think we got it all covered. Thank you.
Right on. Well, good luck with the policy and moving forward. So thank you for your presentation, brainstorming session, whatever we want to call it. So as we move along, we're going to go with staff updates. And so that's going to move us over to Jennifer to give us a department, project, program, facilities, and so forth update. Go ahead, Jen. I'm not going to read that whole thing.
Oh, you're fine. Thank you so much. Jennifer Budge, Parks and Recreation Director. So lots to update you on. Nick mentioned earlier that staff did submit a grant through the Southern Nevada Public Lands Management Act, SNPLMA, for over $14 million grant request. So we met the first deadline. We have a couple more deadlines to do, but I do want to thank the staff working on it. Nick worked on it, Dave Navarro, Lindsay Boyer, Greg Berger. It was Marina Lovejoy, all hands on deck. It was a significant amount of our staff to put that together. So it's a big ask, and it would implement the entire master plan if we're successful. So there's that. And then you'll see in your Board of Supervisors action items, several actions by the Board of Supervisors related to parks bonds for Centennial Park. And I do want to thank the support of the board and then also the Culture and Tourism Authority for supporting that concept so we can do improvements to Upper Centennial. And those bonds and money would be available early next year. We also set aside funding in your CIP that you guys approved in the Board of Supervisors for some of the design because we want the majority of that money to be on the ground. So it would be for artificial turf at Upper Centennial. We have, significant problems up there with wind, and it would be a huge savings in water. Our potable drinking water is used to water those fields. And it would also have drainage improvements, probably a windscreen with landscape, and is sort of a catalyst for other improvements up there. So we have, funding from various sources that will redo all of the tennis courts up there as well. So we'll really be reimagining and improving Centennial Park. We hope to do a master plan up there just like we did for Mills Park and Fuji as well, but making some significant improvements to the aging infrastructure up there. Now, I just want to clarify the park bonds so that through room tax, the Culture and Tourism Authority through their budget just paid off some other bonds for the V&T, and that was up. So they saw this as an opportunity to continue with our existing budget, nothing new, but that's where that park bond will be paid from, is from room tax. So it's not, it's people staying in our local hotels and funding that. So the folks that go to the tournaments at Centennial Park and utilize our parks from that tourism aspect will be funding that bond, which is really wonderful. So it's making improvements not only for local folks, but, for those visitors as well. And then, unfortunately, some sad news. One of our staff members, Chris Orduno, passed away earlier this year. And he was, a really tremendous part of our staff. He was very young, in his early 30s. He was our sports coordinator. And the staff is putting together a, department celebration of life October 21st. And we're going to do, I think, a kickball tournament and go out to dinner at one of his favorite places. And I just wanted to let all of you know about that. Unfortunately, some sad news, and we're really thinking of his family. And he had, such a great outlook and was so positive and had all these creative ideas. So we're going to really try to make sure that a lot of the ideas that he didn't get a chance to implement, that we work with staff to try to implement some of those and maybe have a memorial tournament or something like that in his honor. So his memory can live on here in Carson, and we'll kind of continue to do that. So that said, we have, unfortunately, some open positions, as we always do. Chris's job is posted, the sports coordinator position, recreation coordinator. We also have a park maintenance worker position open and a parks crew coordinator, which is a new position that the board approved for us this year. And they'll not only run, inmates and projects and help hopefully, take some heat off of our park maintenance staff and be a little bit more effective and efficient with that position. And then we have openings in all of our seasonal positions as well. And then if there's not any questions on the Board of Supervisor actions, I asked Dan to give a quick update on arts and culture for you as well, if you don't mind. Oh, sure.
So two things, just really quick. Thank you for the information on the 1021 celebration of life for Chris. I met him at I met him before, but I really had a chance to chat with him at the Move for the Mayor event when we were walking around the MAC, and he was just brilliant. And I'm really sad about this, but I'm grateful for you putting together a possible memorial and keeping his memory alive in all things sports. On the staffing stuff, did the policy we put forward to the board about employee incentives, the pool pass and all that, did that go anywhere? And has anybody signed up? And I just want to know if people are using it.
Thank you for asking that. So the employee incentive, just to remind, we had a recommendation from this board to the Board of Supervisors for opportunities for the staff to be able to use the MAC drop-in use or the pool drop-in use. That hasn't been heard by the Board of Supervisors. It hasn't been scheduled yet. I have talked to Supervisor Schutte about that and trying to work through that. So hopefully I can report back to you or give you a date whenever that might be heard. But I don't have a specific date for you. But thank you for checking back in on that.
Yes, thank you, Dan Arp, Recreation Superintendent, for the record. So we've had a lot of things going on related to arts and culture as we've kind of acquired that division this past year, and it has been doing lots of things. So first and foremost, we did have a vacancy in that position because we had originally filled it with Sierra. She had resigned to move on to another position elsewhere back around Memorial Day, I believe. And so we have now filled that position with Anna Freeman, and she's been here for about a month, I believe. I think she started the end of August. So trying to fill in everything that's going on and get caught up with a lot of big projects. So first and foremost, the big project that we're working on now is the South Carson Street Gateway Roundabout project, and that has been moving forward. We had 153 applications for that project, so a lot of interest throughout the country in being able to do that project. And so we had a panel, they narrowed down to three finalists, and all three of those finalists have now visited Carson City to do a tour of the roundabout and to be able to get some information and learn about the community a little bit and get a feel for our culture and our history. So kind of the next steps with that, their proposals are due on October 30th, so just at the end of this month. And then, we'll be moving forward with, they have to meet with they have to do presentations to the panelists, and then it'll get recommended to the Cultural Commission, and then from there to the Board of Supervisors. December 21st is when that's scheduled to go to the Board of Supervisors for final approval of whoever's recommended of those three finalists. So that's that big project. So we're pretty excited about that one. Just this weekend, we had the Murals and Music Festival, which Sierra had originally worked on, and the city was a sponsor of that event. And I think it was 22 was the final count, if I recall. Murals were painted just over the course of the weekend, all throughout the community, and I'm excited to check those out. I was actually out of town, and so I just got back in this weekend. I've seen a few of them as I've been driving around, so they're noticeable, and it's kind of fun to see these murals that have popped up. One of them was placed on one of our city facilities, the library. You can see it, well, not now, it's dark, but when you walk out in the parking lot, it's right there across the street. But that was, a fun event. It seems that has had a lot of positive reviews and comments that we've heard so far in the last few days since that has happened. What else is going on? So we have there's an art festival going on November 18th out at Silver Saddle Ranch. So we've partnered with the Sierra Arts Foundation. They run a lot of classes for us as well. So we're talking about contract instructors. We partner with them. So they're doing art classes for us. And then our little portable building in the south parking lot here. But then they're running that art festival. So they're kind of doing a holiday art festival at Silver Saddle Ranch. Where they have an all open call for artists right now that I saw posted this last week to try and get some artists that can display their art and sell their art out at Silver Saddle Ranch, have some music, food, and other things out there as well. And then on that, we just have a lot of classes coming up that are art related, which we're excited about, mostly through the Sierra Arts Foundation. They did a lot of programs this summer with summer camps for kids and workshops over the summer, but now they're trying to focus on some more adult programming. So all the classes that they're doing for this fall are all adult based. So check those out in the activity guide. We have those listed. And I think that's kind of our updates for the arts and culture. If there's any questions related to arts and culture, I'd be happy to help answer those.
I had a question. Would you explain to me, as far as the murals and so forth, just the outline of how that took place, and were we paying those artists? Were we? How did they get chosen? All of that kind of stuff, just so I could understand where it all started and what we got. I think it's wonderful too. It was very neat to say, "Oh my gosh, there's one there too."
Sure. So it was mostly coordinated. So Eric Brooks was kind of the coordinator of that event, and he's done this in communities throughout northern Nevada. So I know Elko has done it, Fernley did it, and there's probably a couple others I'm missing as well. Reno, I think, just recently did it as well. And so he's kind of has a lot of practice of doing this. He has basically a plan, and he comes in and does it in these communities. And so he's partnered with the Brewery Arts Center, and then we partnered with them. So the artists were paid. So the city didn't pay the artists directly. We were a sponsor, so we paid a fee as just a sponsor of the event. But then he fundraised, and I know that the CTA sponsored, and he got lots of donors and sponsorships.
I saw that a couple of the murals had sponsored by on the bottom of it and so forth. So that sponsorship went back to this foundation, and then they paid.
Yeah, I know that Eric Brooks and the Brewery Arts Center did the majority of the fundraising for the event. I don't remember what the final amount was, but I think it was somewhere, give or take, around $65,000 to run the event. And my understanding is that the artists, they were all paid, but they did it at a discounted rate because they're supporting the event in the community. But yeah, so that's kind of, I think it was proposed to be able to do that in Carson City, and we had just created the arts and culture. We had someone working on it, so I think they jumped on the opportunity to kind of help get it moving forward.
I mean, I personally think it's just wonderful. So many years we talked about all these positions and all these commissions and all these things, and then to see that happen in such a short amount of time, it's kind of like spring in the wilderness. Boom. It was awesome. So anyway, does anybody want any questions on the art stuff here? Okay, great. So moving on, Jennifer.
That's all for my report.
Why, thank you. So moving on, do we have any announcements from the members of the commission? We'll start down here again. I'm not letting you guys down. All right. Go ahead, Dave.
Thank you, Chairman. Couple of things, of course, pickleball related. We continue to do fundraisers. We're now offering paddles and balls for sale, and the proceeds from that go to our fund at Foundation. We have spent some money. We added some 4 benches and some umbrellas at the courts just to add a little color, and the umbrellas didn't quite do the shading that we'd hoped, but it depends on where the sun is. So sometimes of the day we get really nice sun. I think everybody's enjoying the improvements in the looks, though. We've done crack repair. That also is some expenditure that we have. a little more to do before winter to get those things sealed up. We have our fall 23 Dinks and Drinks tournament, thanks to Parks and Rec sponsorship, is coming up at the MAC on the 18th and 19th of November. We started registrations 2 or 3 months ago, and so far, as of this morning, I had 108 entries. And we're hoping to have, I hope we get 150 or 160 if all goes well. That'll be a fun event. Even if you don't play, it might be fun to come by and look. It'll be on a Saturday and Sunday. We'll have men's and women's doubles events on Saturday and mixed doubles on Sunday. So it's always, I think it's fun to see. We added a 2.5 skill level division this time because we've have a lot of new players that have never participated in tournaments, and they were a little wary about going at 3.0. So we added a 2.5, and I've got some entries in all of that category. So we're pretty excited about where we're going with pickleball, and we're really excited with what Nick has done for us, getting the program moving on the new courts. That's I want to mention that we've been adamant about trying to make those designed as tournament quality courts, so that we really can offer some really nice facilities when we get around to doing tournaments and drawing people in from all around the area. So pretty excited about all that. Thank you.
I just wanted to throw out, as far as the open space and the marriage with recreation and that Cap to Tahoe trail, I work up at the bike shop at the lake a couple days a week to just keep myself riding my bike and talking to the people and all. That it's huge. It's huge, and it's so wonderful that we have that here in Carson City, and people are talking about it. And if you don't know, there's a trail that goes from Marlette Peak all the way down here to Carson City and catches the Ash to Kings Trail, and it's world class. And those people that put that on and the help with the city and the open space, I just wanted to say kudos to everybody and very much appreciated. So that's a marriage between, and it's a recreation that we don't necessarily have purview over, but it's happening and people love it. Just talking to people from Alberta, Canada, just yesterday, and they were just blown away by our little community and all the wonderful trails we had. So just throwing that out there. So Lisa.
And I'll just add comment on the trails as a runner, and it's not just the dirt trails, but also the paved trails. And today, running from Edmonds, Fairview over to 5th Street, and that's a paved trail. And talk about bugs, Danny. I mean, everywhere there were thousands of grasshoppers, and I found myself running and kind of making sure I'm not stepping on anything. But in the summertime, if I don't want to run on the single track because of snakes or something, it's so nice to have those other trails. And I see people riding their bikes. I see strollers. I see dog walkers and school kids walking. So there is just such a wonderful use and that connectivity. So Carson City, boy, there's some really great things going on, and it doesn't happen by accident. So to the Parks and Rec team, the open space team, and to everybody, it's just thank you. It's awesome.
Yes, I shall. Yes, I shall give you the report from the school board. The school board had a very busy summer. We did get through negotiations for all bargaining units, and then also for the district office administrations. Everybody seemed to be extremely pleased with the negotiation process and the contracts that were out there as well. We had a great start. Last I heard, great start from all of the schools. The open houses went well, very well attended. Students were excited to get back to school, and it was a great homecoming week that ended last week. If, for those of you who don't know anything about the MTSS program that the school district has, we received a phenomenal report last school board meeting. It is the multi-tiered system of supports. And I'm saying this because I think parents need to know that it's out there. And it's an implementation of academic behavior and social emotional supports that the school district, with their interventionalists, give to the families and to the students. And it helps then also with the behavior in the schools. It's a multi-tiered. I think it's very important that the parents understand it, that the students understand it, because it eventually it will support the classroom, and it will support the school as a whole. So I think that's very important to get out there. Parents, I think, need to, I receive comments that I don't know what's going on within my school. How do I find out? Well, there are so many ways to find out what's going on in the schools. Social media, the school district has an Instagram and Facebook page that is extremely informative, so I encourage them to get in onto that. And then Parent Square. If there's parents that are not subscribed to Parent Square, please do so. And if you want to know about how your kids are doing in the classroom, please subscribe to Infinite Campus. That will give you literally a second update. The minute anything is entered or not entered, it's in there as well. But when it comes to how the community could help the school district right now the school district is doing a winter coat and sweatshirt drive for students in needs. It's from October 2nd, so it started yesterday until November 17th. And your coats and sweatshirts can be dropped off at the McKinney-Vento office, which is on 618 Musser Street. And that is open from 8:30 to 3:30 Monday through Friday, closed on state holidays. But if you don't want to go out and buy a physical coat or a sweatshirt, they are accepting monetary donations as well. And so you can drop by, $10, $100. This will help students in need for the winter. And then you can also do gift cards, gift cards to where apparel might be able to be purchased as well. And then lastly, if you haven't seen, the school district did a video to retain and recruit educational employees. So the school district, it's a new promotional video to help find and retain educational fields. The school district is still in need of employees, and I would encourage those who are retired, if you would like to drive a school bus, please drive a school bus. We are in need of school bus drivers. How this is affecting our students is also most importantly, those who are participating in extracurricular activities. It is taking them from the classroom much earlier in the day. So say, for example, you don't have a game until 5 o'clock, you're traveling to Reno and you're leaving school at 11. And then you're sitting at the high school in which you're going to be playing at for hours before school, it actually starts, because the bus driver has to come back, do their route to go back again. So I would encourage those of you who are looking for employment, please look at the school district.
Thank you very much. So future agenda items. So I'm going to start down here. Molly, do you have any ideas for any future agenda items?
I'm tapped out.
You're tapped out. What
I'm
about
tapped
you,
out,
Lisa?
thanks.
No. My question was, when do we hear the budget for the next fiscal year? Sometimes that's after the first of the year. Am I correct in that?
Typically, that's the first meeting in the calendar year that we'll start talking about that.
Okay.
And we'll
Well,
talk about it all spring.
All right. Well, we'll put me on the list as far as that question 18 and those gateways,
Yeah.
especially that gateway on the north end of town. So
Absolutely. And I've let Public Works know as well, because they'll had that up, that corridor plan and everything.
yeah. And then we
they
talked about
know.
this, and he had some things when he talked to me last time about that. No, we're going to do it as part of this and part of that. But I'm just being I just want to push for that and see what I can do. And anything I can do to help with that, let me know.
Absolutely.
So, and another thing I had is possibly it got me thinking. Lone Mountain Cemetery has so much history and has so much going on over there. I just thought it'd be great for the commission to have a short history lesson and report about that Lone Mountain Cemetery. So, and we can see Miss Keever the next time too, if it fits into
And
her,
in
if it fits into
December,
her
we
schedule.
typically have a joint meeting with OSAC, but they have so many items that they need to do. We're going to actually have 2 separate meetings. So we will have our meeting here, but it's just Parks and Recreation on December 5th.
Oh, so she was
Yeah.
just telling me about some of the things that are going on over there, and it's
And
something
I
that
think
we don't think
that's-
about until we
that
have
can be
to
the
think about
park
it.
of the month will be Lone Mountain
All right, there
Cemetery.
you go.
Yep.
Sounds great.
So we will
And,
have that.
And with that, I skipped over it, but I was going to bring that up. Would you like to come up and tell us, do you have anything that you want to talk to us about as far as their last foundation meeting? Yes, update from Foundation of Carson City Parks and Recreation, since you were the liaison.
Again, for the record, Leanne Keever. The Parks and Rec foundation is revving up for the scholarships. They do have a significant amount of money put aside for the scholarships to help pay for recreational activities for the children. They are working with Melinda Chase to make sure that there are headstones in Babyland. They've got some funding for that. And I think Melinda is almost at the end of the project. I think she's pretty much identified all the babies who need headstones, and she's working forward. And I think the next project they're looking to do in conjunction with several of the funeral homes in the city is to make sure that each veteran has an insignia indicating which branch of service he or she served on at the gravesite. The problem is how to mount them, how to display them permanently without damaging the markers. So I think that's one of the projects going forth. And then, as I mentioned to you earlier, there is a couple at the Lone Mountain who have undertaken through their own time and funding to refurbish the Hebrew or the Jewish section. And I know that in July, the foundation gives out awards to the volunteers, and I would urge the foundation to seriously consider this couple for some of their awards, just for their selflessness and how much they've done. And I will have some pictures and a brief history on that too when we come back in December. So,
Thank you for that report.
my pleasure.
And see, I got you back. So with that, sorry, as far as future agenda items, we went through that item. So the next thing I have is some public comments. So we have time here for public comment. Danny's going to come up and talk to us
Can
again.
I make a quick one while he's heading up?
Why, yes.
Would that be okay? Jennifer
Of
Budge,
course.
Parks and Recreation Director. I forgot to mention, we do have a public open house on October 10th at 5 p.m. In the community center lobby about the next phase of the Prison Hill Trails. So I encourage the public to come, and we'll have boards up and show conceptual alignments and just gather feedback from the public and encourage everyone to go.
Welcome back, Mr. French. Yes, sir, it is.
Thank you very much, Chair and Commissioners. Denny French, Carson City. I'd like to address Commissioner Whitefield's comments about the lights. I had been told you couldn't put lights in. That was a no-go. And so you weren't going to be there, so you are there. And I hope and wish you well on getting those lights. The community will have responses, I'm sure, because the original responses were negative. And so you have some work to do. But I think maybe they led you down a path of here it is, but we're not going to facilitate certain things, which was a shame. And I think that really didn't play well with me that they did that. So, and also I appreciate your wife and your labors of love out there when I've seen you do the crack seals. And I look forward to an opportunity to try out pickleball. I'd like to also bring up the fact that I feel that for any more considerations on asphalting paths, that there should be an environmental impact study done And until those things are done, I don't think you're quite complete in your due diligence. And I think that at this point, you've done, I think, travesty to what I feel could have been good paths without having to look like highways. And so that to me is a shame. And I don't want it to go further without more considerations of the impact that it's having on the environment. I do understand the comfort of it and the ease of it. And I may be in a wheelchair anytime soon myself, or other issues may come up, and that may be a real go-to. But I've also found alternatives where I don't need to step into that environment. I'd also like to suggest that the discussion tonight was really warming to me. It was interactive, it was connective, it was with some depth, and I do really want to encourage the fact that when you have a situation, you look to other communities. Right now, I really am concerned about the artificial turf, and I don't think you're looking at other concerns that communities around us have been having related to turf. And because of that, I don't think you're as well informed as I think you should be about the hazards of the materials itself, and then the dangers of disposal and the repercussions it has on your landfills, your children, because they're breathing the fumes and they're breathing the materials that are off-dusted. And so I really think more study should be done, and an environmental impact study, any place you're going to put it. Most pollinating bees are not hives, they're ground-based. A lot of these fields during certain times of the years aren't being utilized by anything but those pollinators. And I don't think we're taking those things into consideration. So environmental considerations are real important to me. You know, I'm a bug guy and an environmental guy. And while I may say a no-sayer and I may seem like the wet blanket at the party, I think my angle has to be considered whether or not you agree or not. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your time and your comments. So with that, is there anybody else? Oh, why? Thank you for coming
Lori
up.
Bagwell, I just wanted to remind everyone that Move with the Mayor Day of Service is this Saturday at the Lone Mountain Cemetery from 9 to 11. Come out and help us clean the cemetery and care for those that no longer have someone to care for their site. So come and do that with us from 9 to 11. Last year, we had quite a few people, and I'm hoping for more hands, because the more hands we have, the quicker it will go, and we'll get the whole thing done. So come and enjoy that new park that you're going to learn so much about.
Thank you very much, Lori. Okay, with that, we're at the bottom of the list here. Do I have a motion to adjourn? A second? Look at that. With this for you.